The views and opinions of this broadcast do not reflect the views and opinions of Armed Media, New Productions and its affiliates. Enjoy the show.
Good evening and welcome to the Leadership with Anna Kovic show. We are live from New York City. It's about 9:03 p.m. Thank you for listening, and I hope that your week is off to a great start. I'm very excited and happy to be with you tonight. As you know, our topic is leadership, and we will be reflecting and sharing lots of fun stories and experiences that pertain to leadership. We are welcoming your calls and comments and questions. Our number is 1-800-508-5431. And now I would like to introduce you to a very special guest, Mrs. Keiko Osaki Tomita. Keiko, good evening and welcome to the show.
Hi, good evening, Biana. Thank you very much for. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah, I hope your evening is, off to a great start.
Yes, and thank you very much for inviting me as the first guest to speak. I'm so excited.
Very happy to have you. So, Keiko, you have a very impressive bio. You've been, I'm very impressed with, I'm going to read a little bit about your bio. You are currently a professor of the School of International and Area Studies at the Tokyo University of Foreign Affairs in Tokyo, Japan. Right. You were also former assistant director and chief of demographics and social statistics branch of the United Nations Statistics Division, UNSD, at the New York headquarters in New York City. Keiko also worked as a chief of social policy and population section at United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, UNESCAP, in Bangkok, Thailand, and was chief of the migration section of the UN population at the UN headquarters in New York City. Keiko holds a PhD in sociology from Fordham University and has MA degree in demography from Georgetown University. So you have a lot of UN experience.
Yes. Sorry for the long bio. It means I've been working a long time.
Yeah, I think it's very impressive. It seems to me you started your career with the UN and you ended your career with the UN. Is that right?
Yes, very correct. As a total, I spent my 30 years at the organization called United Nations.
Very impressive. So I think a lot of us might not know a lot about UN. I know, that UN is not only that tall building that we see in New York City. I know there is lots of affiliates and bodies. So I was wondering if you can just give us a little overview about UN and how it works, overall,
You're right. The UN is a very vast, big organization. Although, as you mentioned, that most people may think of the, square flat building in New York City on the East River as a symbol of the United Nations. Indeed, this is a place where the headquarters of the UN system, or the United Nations Secretariat, is located. But in addition, UN has offices all over the world. Especially, I also want you to know that UN also comprises many, so to speak, specialized agencies.
Agencies meaning what? They are focusing on special issues,
exactly. Right? It's the same intergovernmental organization, having a lot of member states underneath, but serving for very specialized, special topic, emerging important global topic. For instance, the longest in existence is the ILO, International Labour Organization, which existed even before the World War II, and dealing with all the labor issues and labor conditions and all about work. The other organization you may think about is the WHO. It's the World Health Organization, which cares the health of the people all over the world. And UNICEF is another very famous, well-known organization. Again, that working to promote the welfare of the children.
Got it, yeah.
So
and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Angelina Jolie is one of the ambassadors, because what UN does, they appoint famous people to be ambassadors. Am I right about that?
You're right. And it's often the case that many UN agencies hire very well-known people as an ambassador or spokesperson, speaker to talk about the mission of the organization and how we devote our efforts for the peace of the world. And so that successfully attract the attention of people. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. And in particular, United Nations Statistics Division that was your last job with that particular agency. Can you tell us a little bit what that body in particular does within the UN ecosystem?
Oh, that's right. Many people may be surprised to find it's a unit called the Statistics Division Office within the United Nations. It doesn't have much visibility. However, it's a very, very important part of the organization. Actually, the statistical unit did exist even at the time of the League of Nations before the World War II, before the United Nations was born. Always the statistics to improve the data for the assessment of policy, or just simply to capture the situation of people in the society. Data and statistics is very, very important. So
the statistics basically tells the story about the country, right?
Yeah, exactly. And most recently, there's a more and more trend that any policy and program that the government formulate needed to be assessed whether it really worked or not, and assessed to be assessed with data and statistics. So again, for that reason, the value of the data and the statistics has been revalued, and there's a great demand to produce more data, and not just the simple data themselves, but data has to be reliable and easily available. And also, as United Nations, we are promoting to produce data which are internationally comparable, so that we can compare the situation across different countries.
Interesting. And I happen to know that you traveled a lot, as part of your job, was traveling to countries, to a lot of countries.
Yes.
So, because you actually provided, would it be correct if I say technical assistance to governments to collect the data accurately? Right?
Yeah,
would that be accurate?
Yes, it's a part of the my task and responsibility. By the way, recently calculated how many countries I have visited out of 30 years in service, and it totals more than 50 countries in the world.
Wow, 50 countries!
Yes.
You must have a lot of passports, Keiko.
Yes,
or maybe not. I don't know how they fit all.
Very messy passport I have.
So that brings me. Go ahead.
Yeah. So just want to say that, yes, the reason that I'm traveling so much is often we organize the very kind of international conference and seminars on different topics. And also, as you mentioned, that we occasionally provide directly the technical guidance and advices for the countries which is in need of technical assistance. Recently that I was a member of the International Advisory Board for the census, population and housing censuses in Myanmar, and also Bosnia.
Myanmar, yes.
And Bosnia and Herzegovina. The two countries didn't have a census for a long time, so we went there and worked with the government closely to help them to operate the census in a smooth manner, and also the outcome of the census will be meeting at the international standard.
So I think you kind of answered my next question, because I would be curious to know, it seems to me your career had a huge impact within the UN work. Am I right about it? I mean, it seems that what you were doing had a space and place within the UN, right? UN work. What would you say to that?
I really hope that I could generate some impact on it. It's a bit difficult to assess by myself, but I think many tasks that I was in charge, I hope that it was very, very meaningful. Especially, I really hope that it helped countries who are in need of international assistance. Yeah,
right.
That's a kind of a dream that I want to always, even before I joined the United Nations, I want to play some roles to help countries in some areas.
And joining UN, I think for me it's very exciting to actually know that someone works at the UN. But how does it actually work for someone to join UN? I know that you started at the very bottom, sort of, and work your way up the ladder. How was that for you? I mean, how someone, I guess, completes an application and then you get an entry level job. Can you talk a little bit about that? And how do you actually move up the ladder? And was it difficult in your case?
Well, I didn't know how to do it because UN is a very unique organization and workplace.
Right.
As you can imagine, as you know, that UN consists of now 193 member states. And,
right, which is 193 countries, what you're referring to, right, Keiko?
Yeah, exactly. And it's 193 countries. And also, so are the employees. The people working at the UN come all different countries. And so it's quite a colorful and multiracial, multinational environment. There's about this, I think right now, about some 50,000 people working at the UN.
50,000, did you say?
Yeah.
50,000?
Yeah.
Wow.
50,000.
At the New York headquarters
alone? No, it's all over the places.
All over the world.
Yeah, I think at the UN headquarters, probably we are about 5,000 or so.
5,000.
So in other words, the UN has offices all over the places in the world. So, yeah, it's very international, and which I liked very much, throughout all these years. But when I joined for the first time, especially coming from, by the way, I'm Japanese, I'm coming from Japan, which is not to be very homogeneous culture. We have the same one unique language and a very similar, physical traits and culture. And so now I was thrown into this international community.
Oh, wow.
And simply, I didn't know how to swim that pool.
Oh, interesting.
And because people come from different, not only language and culture and religion sometimes, which means that each of them bring a different work habits and ethics to the workplace.
And how was that for you? How was that experience where, as you said, people come with different habits and different, even language they speak, because some,
Right. So at the beginning, I was probably a little bit naive, but I really enjoyed the dynamics that this international community can create. It doesn't. The words are simple, but not simple. But I think bringing all the different perspectives together, we can really generate quite a dynamic workforce, and we can accomplish a lot. And I like that. I wanted to also acknowledge the differences in each individual, but it doesn't necessarily mean a conflict. We can respect each other. We can live and work together.
Got it.
So in that sense, the UN is a very futuristic society in a small scale. And that gives us kind of hope, what the future of our future will be like.
Might be. Right. And then, so you started at the very bottom. Am I right about that? You started at the very entry level, or not?
Yeah, it's a junior level. Yeah.
Got it. And then slowly you moved up to be one of the top bosses of basically that particular agency. Am I right about that?
Yeah, at the secretariat. Yeah,
secretariat. Got it. So how was, as a woman, like how was moving up the ladder for you? Was it easy? How fast were you able to do it? I'm just curious.
Yeah, actually, I've been probably say that I've been very lucky. Throughout the 30 years, I never felt it's so challenging and difficult as a woman to, move up the career ladder. Probably because I benefit a lot by the UN policies to empower women within organization. It's been a long time, I think even the beginning of this century or 20 years ago. So UN had very clear policy to give equal opportunities for women and promoting the women to seek career as the same way that the men counterparts do, and also encouraging to take up managerial positions. So it's been clearly mentioned that I think it started at the time when Kofi Annan was a Secretary General at the end of the last century. And this culture was really penetrating at the United Nations. I think, therefore, I felt very much encouraged each time when I apply for the higher position. I know that the organization was looking for the female who is capable and try to really promote us.
And so you basically, you were just moved up, and then I know that at one point you also switched offices, correct?
Yes.
You went to Bangkok.
That's right. That also probably helped at the end to move the career up, because I could gain the different experiences. Although I worked for the United Nations, but being in a regional office, so to speak, gave me a different experiences and perspective on how to, tackle the problem of the world. Yes, more specifically, that yes, I started working at the UN by joining a headquarters in New York City, and I worked the division called Population Division for 17 years. Then I moved to, so to speak, regional commission. It's called the United Nations Regional Commission for Asian and Pacific Regions, ESCAP. Which is a regional office of the UN, which oversee the activities of the 62 countries and areas in Asian Pacific region. And being a regional office, I could get much closer to the respective countries of the United Nations, and so I could really listen to their needs. And I think it's much also easier to see how our work impacting their society or the policies.
And then after that, after spending some time in Thailand, you returned to New York City, correct?
Yes, yeah, you're correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, I was back to the headquarters, but I I joined a different office. It's a statistical division that you mentioned earlier.
So this show is about leadership, and I was wondering, I guess when I had my first leadership position, I read a lot of books. I really wanted to, because people get, once you kind of moved up the ladder and you kind of start supervising people, you want to kind of look good. I think that's, everyone wants to look good. So, when I first was appointed into my leadership position, managerial leadership position, I read a lot of books, I watched a lot of TV, how to be a leader and also and so forth. And I was wondering, what was your experience? I mean, were you, did you have any role models? Did you read any, how did it come for you just naturally, or you had to learn like I did, spending a lot of time just really studying the subject?
It's a kind of struggle, history of the struggle, because I didn't really couldn't find any particular role model, so to speak. And I think I was doubly conditioned because I come from Japan, where people value more kind of the harmonious society and the consensus, rather than expecting very strong leaders to lead a society. So the term of the leadership has a connotation of the like kind of mannish image, with the strong visions and kind of charismatic, masculine, energetic feature who can influence the others with power. So I think I was equally, obsessed by the idea that who the leaders have to be like. But it doesn't go well with the kind of my cultural background as a Japanese, so it didn't come naturally to me. And also being at the UN, as I mentioned, that everybody has a different work ethics and values. So just being in the international community like UN also didn't really teach me what kind of leadership role that I can exercise. So then I look for a little bit, is there anybody who can consider to be a role model? Then let's say, frankly, it was about 20 years ago. And there are not many, so to speak, women leaders in the world. There's some female, colleagues and somebody who are senior positions, but they look like just a copy of male leaders, or some of them look not really competent enough, because we know that she was appointed simply because she was a woman. So there was a period that I couldn't really, find what the role what kind of style I should seek in exercising leadership.
And how did you what helped you find that that style?
Yeah, so I studied a little bit here and there, and as you mentioned, I also read a book. Then I think my breakpoint is that I noticed that there's not a unique, definite style of the leadership. The leadership can take in different forms and styles. So it's not necessary that everybody has to be like a macho or strong leader to impress others, but there are other styles. So that was kind of eye-opening to me, and I tried to be more kind of myself, so that whatever the action I take have to come very naturally from me. So that's why I think I end up becoming more the style of like what do you call it, participative,
like a teamwork and collaboration,
or laissez-faire. So in other words, I didn't really intervene to day-to-day activities of staff, but I paid close attention to what's going on a daily basis, and I also wanted to understand if the subordinate staff are really happy or not. I tried to listen to them to the extent possible. So, I didn't get directly involved in the daily activities, but I made efforts to observe what's going on in the team, and only when it's necessary, I'll intervene and make a kind of final decision for the team.
So you were more observant.
Yes. But I thought after some try and errors.
Like everyone has.
Right. I was convinced probably my role is to create kind of enable environment for my staff and everyone, so that everyone can demonstrate their own ability to the full extent, and also try to let them grow, in light of their own expertise, so that they feel more comfortable and fulfilling.
So my next question is, I guess, talking more about supervision, because leadership goes hand in hand with supervising people. So what do you think it's, can you tell us a little bit about your, supervision style? And, I assume it's because you already mentioned that you're more team kind of oriented. So is that how you manage folks? Like you would, be more like a team oriented versus tell them what to do?
Yeah, I think good managers can be a good leader, but good leader are not necessarily, maybe not necessarily the managers. That's what my observation.
Oh, I see.
So there's slight differences. So again, maybe in that sense, I'm more fit for the manager rather than the leader.
Got it. So what you're saying to me, not everyone has to be a good leader and good manager. Some people can be good leaders, but not good managers, and vice versa, right?
Yeah, that's what I have observed in all of the years in the United Nations. Yeah.
And I know that so you worked in New York headquarters and also in Thailand. So what was how did your managing style changed from New York to Thailand? Oh, did it have to change? Did it have to change, or maybe
It's very good questions, and in principle, that I try to maintain the same style. Try to be very approachable, and try to support my team to the extent possible behind. But once I arrived in Thailand, and I noticed one thing, it's very unique. Thai, because office is located in Bangkok, Thailand, you can naturally hire many Thai local people as a staff, who really played a very important role to support professional staff who are mostly international staff. But the Thai culture is very, unique. Thai people are very diligent, very hard workers, but in a way like the Japanese, not necessarily good at expressing their own feelings or opinions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and I thought there's a lot of common between the Japanese culture and Thai culture in that sense, and they like to be, very supportive and attending the need. But I started thinking, are they really willing to do that from their bottom heart, or they just wanted to, not show their own feeling?
So they just try to go along with it without really agreeing to what you were asking.
Yeah. For example, if I can tell you an example, occasionally we have to work late hours, beyond the office hours. And I have to ask, is it possible for you to stay 1 or 2 hours late? And they immediately say yes, and they'll be happy to do that. But I couldn't really tell if it's really true or not.
Right.
So I have to ask a few times, and it's really true not to intervene in their own personal life or their life. And, I really probably needed to put the extra efforts to understand their feeling and of the local people in Thai. I think it's something to do with their own culture.
And I think in particular, I don't, in my experience, people would not tell their bosses no,
Right,
people would want to stay, late to please,
Exactly.
So I think it's part of the, I think possibly culture of the people, to kind of please. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. They're more clear hierarchy compared to the office in New York. And but I think it's partly, the influence of the local culture. So it's nothing, bad or good thing, but we have to take that into account in managing the office. And I also, try to make friends, be friends with them to the extent possible, so that they would feel more comfortable and open their mind more to me. For instance, I occasionally invited them for lunch outside. But in this kind of very intimate environment, sometimes they can express their, opinion and the view about the work and the people, and it helped, I think. So we became a very good, exactly, and also building a trust of each other. I think that's the whole process.
I think that making that connection with folks that you work with definitely helps to get the job done. Because I think people are more willing to assist and really help out when they feel appreciated. And I believe that, by taking them out like you did, you made them feel that they mattered. Am I right about that?
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah.
And even in New York, throughout the whole UN system, there's broadly speaking, two types of job. One is so-called professional, and another is called general service. Professional consists of mostly the foreigners and with particular skills, where the general service staff is locally hired and playing a supporting role for the professional staff members. And unfortunately, these two groups are complementary each other, but unfortunately, often there's a rather clear divide, and the communication between two groups are not necessarily smooth. But I think, it's not good. So throughout my career, wherever I work for, I try to remove this barrier between these two groups. So, for instance, if I call for the meeting, I always invited everyone in the same meeting room, not necessarily, selecting only one group. And also, I created a kind of a regular the party time. So that,
party time is good because people work all the time. Yeah.
That's right. I usually organized a monthly brunch meeting, and where everybody was invited, of course. Then after that, we decided to have the pizza party. So the meeting was followed by the party, and within a short time that everybody could talk and mingle. I think people liked it. And
I think people like when there is food. Everyone's going to show up for the food, right?
That's exactly the point.
Even the ones that were not invited, they will come.
Exactly.
Which is good. So it seems to me you have a very reflective side of your leadership, which I believe it's very important for one to be a good leader, right? So have you ever experienced, and obviously this is a little bit interesting question, because have you ever experienced when your leadership, because sometimes we have our good days and sometimes, we try all the things and they are not, you might not be as successful. Do you have any stories to share with us where your leadership was not, even though you were a very reflective person and very inclusive, but, you were not, it just wasn't, you were not coming, your leadership was not really, accepted, I guess.
There were many challenging experiences.
Or challenge,
So if I can tell you the one kind of, not the conflict, but the kind of crush with my, one of the staff when I was in New York, that one of the young junior female person who asked me that if she can take the part-time assignment outside office, my office, so she can move to the different office in the UN system and work like 3 months, 5 months, something like that. And she desperately wanted this opportunity, but at the end, I have to turn that request down. And I said clearly no, which upset her very much.
Of course, yeah.
She tried to refute because she thinks this is an opportunity for her personal growth, because by taking different assignment in a new office, so that she can gain new knowledge and different skills, which really enhance her, career portfolio. I fully agree with that argument. It's great. However, as a manager, I cannot just easily release her because we have a full workload, and we are in a very busy time. At the end of the biennium, we really have to finish a lot of things on time. And as a manager, my responsibility is to get the job done on time.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I have to tell her that I'm sorry that I wish. And actually, this was the second time. Once I approved her moving to the other office, then she came back. and this is the second time. So therefore, I said that I understand this can be a good opportunity for you, but this time I cannot say yes to you because our priority is to get the current job done. So you can imagine that she was very
Upset. Yeah.
Very angry.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
And she argued very hard with me, and even saying that she's talking to a lawyer.
Yeah. Oh wow. Wow.
About my inability and incapability of managing the staff and the work. So at the end, it was very uncomfortable situation because I have to make a kind of hard decision which are not liked by the staff member. But I have to stick to, the responsibility as a, manager. So later on, I learned that why she was so adamant and so arguing with me so hard is that not a long time ago, she missed the opportunity for the promotion.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, so she was competing with the other staff member in the same office for the promotion for the higher
the personal
position.
Sort of interest in that particular position.
Exactly. So she was frustrated, and she desperately wanted to get the promotion. Therefore, I thought, according to her, getting exposure to the other area is another quick win to get for the promotion. Anyway, so the point that I learned is that she was accumulating some frustration about her working environment and about the prospect of her career development, which I was not really aware of that.
Yeah.
So again, coming back to the point of what the role of the manager leader is that we really have to be very sensitive enough what's in the mind of the staff member is.
Right.
And understanding what condition that they are, is there any frustrating point or not. So it's we have to pay attention.
Right.
And have to work with them closely. Yeah, it's a
I think it seems to me you have to strike a balance between understanding where they come from and sort of like guiding them to where they need to be, right?
Yeah, ideally I could have guided if I had known that she was so frustrating. I could have been a better mentor and to guide her in a different direction. But I was not fully aware of what's going on. So it ended up becoming such kind of the crush that for the rest of my office was watching at what's going on.
Yeah, I can imagine. It became a drama, right?
Yes.
A little bit drama there. So that kind of leads me to a next question. Sometimes folks that we work with, they get upset or they get angry, and it's because possibly we don't know what's in their heads, what their sort of needs are. So how did you manage that? How did you, if you ever had to work with someone who is not happy in the environment they worked with, besides that lady, that was, I think, very extreme case, how did you manage other folks that might have felt lost at one point in their careers while working in the department? Did you have experience, working things out, or how did you go about it?
Yeah, it's all to do with how to communicate better with a person. And obviously, we don't have a good chemistry with everyone, right? Everyone has a different personality and background, and it is more so in a work environment like United Nations. And I can tell you that another difficult time that I had was the few times somebody who is senior in terms of age and a male employee, male staff was assigned to work under me.
Oh, okay. And how was that?
Yeah, and these people, by chance, come from the culture background. It's known to be very male chauvinistic or strong culture, the culture which is strong presence of the male in a society. When this person, it was more than one case, but these people are assigned to work with me, who is younger than they are, and the women. And obviously, it really created a very uncomfortable zone, you can imagine, from both sides.
So it's almost like, how do you delegate? Part of the leadership is delegating, asking people to do certain things. So I can imagine that delegating responsibility was not very comfortable for you, right? In this particular case.
How can create a comfortable communication between us? So it was kind of rough start because I felt like I was not welcome by them. But cannot keep the situation hanging there. So what I did was, because they are senior than I am, and they have much more skills in certain areas, and they have more experience than I do, because they've been with the organization longer than I am. So I try to support the kind of very strong, positive skills and knowledge that they have, and I try to acknowledge how resourceful they are, and ask them to help me with that particular assets or the skills.
And that, in some respect, elevated his position in your team.
Intentionally, I acknowledge them in public and how great they are, and how I'm grateful that to have some experienced person in the team. And I think gradually, then we could have more better relationship and the communication.
Nice. So that actually kind of, it's a good segue into next discussion is, some people look at leaders as being very powerful, like they think you have all the power, but actually I believe that it can be very, very tough position. You're very vulnerable in that position because you do depend from people working with you, not against you, and sometimes people, don't want to work with you, and especially it's leaders, also leaders having to hone his skills or her skills to, to work better with people. But what are your thoughts on being vulnerable, being very vulnerable in that particular role, in leadership role,
As a leader.
Yeah, as a leader, because I think, it can be pretty not easy job, right? To manage people. It's not easy.
I just have to accept the fact I'm not the perfect person, and I also have a kind of vulnerable aspect. And but I think deep in my bottom that the leader doesn't have to be such a superman and superwoman. Everybody has a different style and personalities, but I think it helps if we, as a leader, we can be a bit modest and try to respect the co-workers. And I think that really helps to build a trust to each other. I think if we could really establish very trustworthy relationship, they're willing to work with you and to help you. So, as much as we, as a leader, wanted to empower our subordinate, but I think all these staff members themselves, if they can trust me, I think also they are willing to contribute and help me. I think this is the way to be, I think.
That's a very good. And also, I think as a leader, we have to delegate, right? Yes. And I think we talked about it a little bit before. How were you ensuring that you're equally delegating? Because sometimes people can say, she got more than I did, workload. How did you ensure that people actually were equally treated? Because I think that's very important for people to feel equally treated in a workplace.
You're absolutely right. But, delegation is not as easy as I thought. Because in a way, we are a human being. By delegating, chunk of the responsibility to someone else, I also often felt that I'm dispowering myself.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So why did the power that I gain have to be, given to someone else? So it's a kind of a dilemma in itself. But I think over time I learned it's very, very important to delegate the authority to your subordinate, because one thing is that also created the trust from their side on me. And also by delegating more responsibility, it empowered them too. So after noticing that, I also pay attention to I shouldn't really grab all the power and authority within myself, but I really have to distribute it.
Yeah, it's shared power, right? So
exactly.
You gotta share your power with others.
But the point is that how I can distribute it with equal weights, evenly with the people among the staff member. I don't want to make some favoritism, but at the same time, even among staff members, some are very power hungry. They're really aggressive looking for the others are shy. So I really have to see, what the best balance in between. But in principle, that I try to delegate the authority to the extent possible, equally, evenly, and even small example like when I travel, I have to ask someone to play a role of officer in charge in my absence. Yeah, and I intentionally rotated who will be officer in charge, so that one person won't get overpowered.
And how did you folks react to that? Having, not knowing who's going to be next in charge.
I don't know. I never ask it, but some might have an expectation, especially someone who's been long in office and has seniority. He or she might thought that he or she should get more opportunity to be officer in charge compared to the other junior people. But I thought that I didn't want to be seen and I'm in favor of any particular person. So I was really distributing this authority, the extent possible, evenly among those who are qualified.
Nice. So, I think, leadership is usually associated with very serious position, very serious. Is there any fun part that is part of that being a leader? Anything that you can say it's really that part of leadership is really fun in your opinion,
Fun.
or maybe not. I'm not sure.
I don't know. I mean, some people are really talented or equipped with that kind of skill. I myself didn't see myself. But after I have learned the different management or the leadership style, and I think finally I found my own style that made me feel kind of more comfortable. And the fun part is that, yes, even within the very limited authority I had, I think a few things that started, or I could create a new activities under my with my initiatives, and some are working for a long time. And if I see, this is the work that I started, and still continue, then that makes me feel very fulfilling, satisfied, because it's indicated I have done something meaningful at least.
Yeah, and you have in some respect created a different culture by doing that, right?
Oh yeah, yes, of course.
And in your opinion, there's lots of media now with current leadership. I'm not going to get into politics, but there's lots of media always commenting on leadership and so on and so forth. What are your thoughts on, media effect on leaders? And, or even like, within an office environment, like, talks about current leaders. Sometimes people get together near the water fountain. What is your feeling? What are your thoughts on that? In particular media or in particular, just even office chatter about the current leadership. And does that have an effect on the leader itself and the leadership style?
Probably. Media is very, very powerful. I think it's really influenced the idea, or I think created a typical stereotype image of what the leader to be. And I think there's some danger in it, because as I have learned through some pain, that there's not only a style of the leader, but unfortunately because of the media, I think there's a tendency to create the very stereotype of the strong image of the leaders, which is often portrayed as a very opinionated and have very power, and so I think one has to be very careful. It transcends a lot of message, and unconsciously people may be building up a typical image of a leader, what the leader to be.
And within the UN ecosystem, do you feel that UN was supporting a particular form of leadership, or or was that not the case?
I don't think so. While they're promoting empowering the women, I don't think UN itself is promoting a particular style of the leadership. But as more women are moving to the higher position, I could see the different style of the leadership undertaken by the different senior officers, female officers. And I think that also helped me to understand there's no a unique whole leadership stereotype that it can take in different forms. I have met many, or have observed many strong head of states or female ministers, and also head of the UN agencies who are women. And actually their style are quite different from one to another. And but if I may say, one person which impressed me very much as a kind of role model within the UN system is the lady whose name is Sadako Ogata.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of that? Yeah.
No, I haven't. Who is she? Can you tell us a little bit more about her?
She was the head of UNHCR. She was a high commissioner for the refugees in the 1990s. And 1990 is a time there's a lot of kind of a serious refugee crisis. A lot of people fled in Balkans and also Great Lake regions in Africa. So there's a large number of people fleeing their home countries and within the country and also outside the country. So it's one of the time considered to be a refugee crisis. So she was the head of the organization at the time, at a very critical time. And she was, before she joined the UN, she was a college professor. So everybody was in a way wondering, is she really competent enough or not? But at the end, she really performed very wonderful. And she used her storage, very rich academic knowledge, and also, very soft diplomatic skill as a woman. And so she ended up overseeing quite a large scale emergency operations. And she was also very action-oriented, and things get done immediately. A very, very practical approach. But if you see her, she's always appeared very calm and very elegant person, lady too.
Interesting.
Yeah, and
yeah,
and also what I also like the most is that because as a UN staff member, we hear her reputation through the staff member who are actually working for her directly. And everybody speaks how great she is. In a sense, no matter how busy and how much she's involved in her work, she does care her own stuff. So she's always considering the welfare of her own staff members, because being a UNHCR organization like that, and staff members are often exposed to the very hardship in a very difficult work environment in being in front of the refugee movement. So I heard that this is very considerate about if the staff members are well taken care of, and if their families are safe and so forth. To me, it's very, very...
So,
go ahead.
So it seems to me she was a very caring leader, right, Keiko?
Yeah, I think so. So that's the point.
So Keiko, we are almost, I'm sorry to do this, but we almost end of our, coming close to our end of our show. Any final advice or parting words for our listeners tonight?
Maybe I can just conclude what I was talking, because I think the whole point that I'm believing, what makes the great leader. And I think, in my view, the great leader, it really requires many different skills and traits, but I think one has to have not only a strong head, but also have a very big heart. One has to be very sensitive.
And I think that's a wonderful ending for our show tonight. Again, I want to thank Keiko for being our guest, very first guest. It was wonderful talking to you. And
thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I thank all the listeners who were with us tonight. Again, thank you very much for being with us at Leadership with Biana show. Wishing you a wonderful evening and a wonderful week ahead. And I hope that we will see you again and on Monday, June 11, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Again, thank you so much. Thank you, Keiko. And